Hey everyone. Oops, don't need that. Okay. So, hope all is well. If you will, let's take a look at a few articles here, and I want to kind of run something by you. So here we have an article. I'm first going to say there is truly money at the border. When there is chaos, there is money to be made. There is money at that border. Trust and believe. Oh, the money's there. So I want to kind of go over some articles here with you. Hidden inflation on Biden's watch. And this is not to be, I know for some of those who are the ride hard, died hard, let's just look at the information. I'm not saying for you to vote for anybody. Do your thing. Hidden inflation on Biden's watch. Prices in migrant smuggling economy soar to $2.6 billion. Interesting. The migrant smuggling economy at the U.S.-Mexico border now tops $20 billion, and the cartels have made at least $2.6 billion in profit over the past 12 months just from controlling the routes illegal immigrants use, according to a Washington Times analysis. Both amounts are up substantially from the Trump and Obama years because more people are coming to the border and because they are paying higher prices. Now, keep in mind of the taxpayers' dollars spent at these homeless shelters. Mexican migrants are paying an average of $8,600 in total smuggling fees this year, according to the Washington Times database of smuggling cases. That's up roughly $2,000 from 2019, the last pre-pandemic year under the Trump's administration. Migrants from El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala are paying about $11,500 for the trip, up from $9,000 in 2020 and $7,900 in 2019, the Times data shows. So the Mexican migrants are paying an average of $8,600 to smugglers in fees. I have a problem with that because I feel that the American taxpayer is getting played. I really do. So you're paying that to the smuggler, but then you come here and the American is paying for the shelters, the building, the food, the TV, the phone, the Xbox, the furniture, the clothing, the beds, the linen, the staff, the electricity, the light bill. So they're paying the migrants. Then they come here with nothing. So they say, if you can pay $8,600, you might can pay some of your way here. And then the American taxpayer would pick up the rest. I have told you before, in some locations, there are reports you get a year of free rent, being you're renting a house or an apartment, free rent, and free utilities. There's no such thing as a free lunch. That cook is not working for free. The food is not for free. Someone's paying. Who's paying? The American taxpayer. So the smugglers are getting paid crazy cash. And then the American taxpayers, we get to bail out when they get here. Okay, you're here. Okay, you're going to need food, clothing, shelter. We got it. And of all times, inflation. So let's continue. Let's go ahead and briefly, so it's kind of a 2-in-1 video here. Let's talk about the war on drugs, the war on crime. Remember the 94 crime bill? I'm starting to think that maybe the 94 crime bill is only applicable to the Americans. Okay, something's not right. So here's an article, New York Post. The Mexican cartel smugglers nabbed with $1.2 million worth of meth in NYC, then released thanks to lax bail laws, according to the feds. Wow. So a pair of suspected Mexican drug cartel smugglers was busted with a $1.2 million stash of crystal meth, but had to be freed thanks to New York's tax bail laws, authorities said Monday. The two California men, Luis Estrada and Carlos Santos, were allegedly caught red handed by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration as part of a multi agency investigation. Yet frustrated agents had to stand by and watch as the suspects were cut loose on just supervised release, the federal agency said. That's because the two men could only be charged with second-degree criminal possession of a controlled substance as opposed to a narcotic under the state's outdated drug laws, authorities said. And the rap does not qualify for bail according to the Empire State's soft on crime 2019 bail reform measures, they said. This is a serious problem, said New York City Special Narcotics prosecutor Bridget Brennan to the Post. Quote, the failure to include methamphetamine crimes among bail eligible offenses was probably an oversight. I disagree. An oversight? One thing, you ever heard the saying, money doesn't sleep? It doesn't. It's always planning. Those that have it are pretty good at planning. So you think these, it's like, well, some may say, well, those laws just happen to be there, and so, oh well. But who put the law there? How many Americans are sitting up? We've seen stories. I can't say we. I have seen stories where you have Americans who were caught with marijuana got a life sentence, especially in the BC. One man was caught as a teenager, maybe 19 or so, with some marijuana, got a life sentence in Texas. You got to be kidding me! They finally let him out, but still, are you serious? And no, he wasn't a habitual user. But that 94 crime bill, so I'm trying to understand the same administration, the 94 crime bill, the war on drugs, we're gonna get you. Is the get you only for the Americans? Something's not right. But other people are coming here caught with methamphetamines, fentanyl, they're released. Well, if that's the case, go ahead and let those low level marijuana offenders out. No American should be incarcerated for marijuana. Fentanyl, meth, released. Something in the milk isn't white, and to me, something about this isn't right. I don't have the answer, but it just seems to me, in my opinion, that the drug laws are only applicable to the Americans. And why now? All this fentanyl coming in, methamphetamine. We all have an opinion. Maybe you all can tell me. Is the law only for the Americans? So let's check this out. I'm telling you, there is money being made at that border. They're not letting this go. If if they want it stopped, don't you think it would? There's money in the drama at that border. Here is the piece de resistance, and I can't confirm or deny. As an attorney general, I am quite sure that he has more information than I do on the subject. And I ran across this article, Newsmax. Huh. Texas AG Attorney General Ken Paxton to Newsmax. What does he say in this article? The Biden administration, in partnership with cartels, that's a lot to say. It's a lot. I'm going to go ahead and get to the article. On Tuesday, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton claimed that the Biden administration has been working in partnership with cartels in transporting migrants to the United States. For Newsmax Spicer and Company program, Paxton asserted the state of Texas will do all it can to arrest people coming across the border. The reality is, for the first time in our history, the cartels have been invited to bring people to the Border Patrol themselves. The migrants coming from the southern border are not running from anyone. We don't even have access to these people because they are directed by the Biden administration to bring as many people to the border. Bring them to the Border Patrol and we'll transport them, Paxton says. So the AG, his statement to Newsmax is about administration in partnership with the cartels. Say it isn't so, people. Say it isn't so.
One of those attorney generals was Ken Paxton of Texas, who joins us now. General Paxton, always good to see you.
Hey, thanks, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. You know, the bottom line is that, frankly, this is like a temporary reprieve, right? Because you guys got it to stay in place. So, number one, can you give us some sense of how long, like legally, like how does this play out legally? Meaning, I know the administration was supposed to give its response to the court, but how long do you see this thing staying in place based on what the court ruled? And then, secondly, you know, the bottom line is this is a pandemic error policy, meaning that at some point, regardless, it goes away. So what is the long-term plan?
Yeah, so it's temporary. It's definitely a temporary halt. We want a more permanent halt. And then we want to have the opportunity to go trial on the merits to present our case as to why we think this should stay in place. And as to your question as to the pandemic, this Title 42 is a lot broader than just the pandemic. It relates to really all types of transmitted diseases. And so it's not just COVID that we're talking about. We're talking about all kinds of possible transmission of disease because we've got people coming from 150 countries. And in the past, we've been very careful about making sure that people had their appropriate vaccinations. And in this case, obviously, the border's wide open. Anybody can come. They can bring anything with them, and they don't have to be vaccinated for anything.
So let me ask you this. Are you concerned, and I'm talking from a legal standpoint, I don't know how much precedent plays into something like this, that when you and the other 18 attorneys general filed the suit, basically you're saying we want Title 42 to stay in place, which presupposes, since Title 42 was predicated on COVID being an issue, that the argument could be flipped on you guys by the left, who's saying, well, here are these Republicans that are arguing that COVID's still a problem, and therefore in these other areas of society, we want to still use COVID as an excuse for shutdowns and lockdowns, et cetera.
No, it's actually just the opposite. The Biden administration has been doing that. They've been trying to use COVID as an excuse for Americans the entire time. It was Americans who had to make sure that they took a COVID test before they came back, and if they had COVID, they couldn't come back in. It's Americans that were restricted in flying. It was Americans that they tried to push down these job provisions through OSHA and others, where they wouldn't have jobs if they didn't follow the rules of the administration on vaccination. So it's actually been the opposite. The federal government, the Biden administration, has used this as a weapon against Americans and their choice and their freedom and their jobs and their safety, and yet they've opened the borders to everyone, from COVID carriers to any other disease, along with terrorists potentially. And for sure, we're fighting them in Texas over releasing criminals into our country who are convicted felons. And there seems to be no hesitation on the Biden administration to do all of that stuff.
So the mayor of El Paso, who I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is a Democrat, declared a state of emergency in that city. Why hasn't the state of Texas done the same, and can it?
So I feel like our governor's done about everything he can think of to do. The reality is we're in a very different situation than we've ever been before. We will arrest people coming across the border for trespass. We'll arrest them for any crimes that we can get them on. The reality is what's going on here is, for the first time in our history, the cartels have been invited to bring people to the Border Patrol themselves. They're not running away from anyone. And so there's no we don't even have access to these people because they are directed by the Biden administration just bring as many people to the border, bring them to Border Patrol, and then we'll transport them. This is a partnership. This is not like they're running from the government. They're not running from the federal government. The Biden administration is actually inviting them to turn themselves in and just claim, the magic word is asylum. So we're in a very awkward position because the federal government is preventing us from even enforcing our own laws.
Real quick, I've got about 20 seconds left. The Texas National Guard is down there on the border. What authorities do they have to the point that you're just making? Can they arrest? Can they turn back people? What can they do?
So they can do whatever they're directed by the governor to do. The problem is that ultimately the federal government, the Biden administration, can step in and take over any National Guard duties. So if Biden decides that we're doing something that he doesn't want done, he can literally direct them otherwise, and we'd be in a position of having no real way to stop that from happening.
This is just, it's absolutely insane that our own federal government is allowing a state like yours to frankly face an invasion. So I appreciate you coming on and telling us what's happening. I wish you guys all the best down there in your efforts to stop this. And again, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you. We're going to keep fighting, and definitely Merry Christmas to your entire audience.
Okay, people, so you heard it there yourself. Unbelievable. So there's money at that border. There is money at that border. And then the sad thing is the taxpayers, we're just picking up the bill for the necessities. Anyway, let me know what you think. Do you agree with the AG Ken Paxton, the Texas Attorney General, that the Biden administration in partnership with the cartels? Do you agree with that? Let me know your thoughts. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, and share. And I'm out.